Good evening. You're watching Redwood Wonk. My name is Eric Kirk. Dave is out for the week, so we have Aaron Donaldson sitting in for him. We've got a lot of news to talk about this week, and we're going to start with, of course, Trump, as usual, has the stranglehold we've been discussing on the Republican Party. There is, we'll discuss a little bit later in the show what's remaining of the Civil War after Cheney is out, after Liz Cheney lost her primary last week. But we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Mar-a-Lago raid. Of course, as you know, just to review quickly, there was an FBI raid on an ex-president's home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened in the history of the Republic. And of course, immediately there was a backlash. Even some people that don't support Trump were wondering, what are they doing? Is this politically motivated, or was this absolutely necessary? It turns out, as we've been learning more about the facts, he's been given extension after extension after extension. The Department of Justice has been trying to negotiate with him. Apparently, at least according to them, he's been playing games with them. He gave back some documents in January and February earlier this year, but apparently withheld a whole bunch of them. 700 documents in total were highly classified. And the saga goes on, and now he's making a motion because he wants the top secret documents back. And he's making a motion to basically dismiss. One of his motions is kind of crazy. It's because he's got so many supporters that it could lead to violence if he's being prosecuted. So he doesn't want. He's trying to make a preemptive motion. It's a crazy motion, and part of the reason he's making some of these crazy motions is that he doesn't really have really credible or reputable attorneys in his camp. None of the usual attorneys that he's hired in the past are willing to work for him. There's rumors that people are just saying, no, not this time. I don't want to be involved. And there are a lot of reasons, and we'll go into those. But Aaron, I'd like to get you into the discussion. There's plenty to discuss about this, about the political fallout of it, and what this is going to mean for the Republic, especially if this guy runs for president. Aaron?
So one of the things that's really fascinating to me about absolutely all of this is that it is no surprise to anyone that Donald Trump has a problem with the law on a fairly regular basis. This is someone whose foundations have been found guilty of all sorts of malfeasance, someone who has been sued and sued again and has countersued a lot of times. In a lot of ways, this is not new for Donald Trump, but it is definitely new for our republic. And that's yet another byproduct of what happens when we elect someone like Donald Trump to be president of the United States of America. So I think that while this is certainly unprecedented, it's also very predictable. When you look at what happened, as you know, and as most people know that have been following it, this isn't just like a small little thing that he did wrong and they come and bust his doors down. They had to get something major signed. Yeah, the basic test, as you know, is that first there has to be like proof that there is a crime committed or evidence of a crime that has been committed. Number two, we have tried and tried again, and we believe that they will in fact not return these documents in spite of our prior efforts. Number three, these documents contain information that threaten significantly the security or the national interests of our country. And if you could meet those tests, then you can send the FBI to the home of a sitting president, or a former president, I should say. In any other circumstances, if Donald Trump were any other civilian, they would have gone to his home long before that, and they would have dragged absolutely everything, including the occupants of that home, out of there, kicking and screaming if necessary, because that is what happens when you take 700 documents, including top secret documents, home. But because he is the former president, he's already getting treated with kid gloves. And yet conservatives are crying foul, Republicans are crying foul. It just seems very selective.
some other people are like being critical that maybe they should have gone in sooner and not let it drag out this far. I mean, because what has he done with the documents? Has he given them to other people? Now, there's some people are saying no, he has them because of it's his ego. He just feels like he's entitled to them and has them. But other people are saying, he's in hock with a lot of unsavory people that maybe have interest in these documents. There've been a lot of talk about collusion, and of course, he likes to say no collusion, but he's got extensive dealings with a lot of people who would love to have access, and we know that he's probably in a lot of debt. We know that Trump Tower was in hock and almost ready to be foreclosed on at one point. Apparently, he's out of it now, at least for the time being. But I mean, so this is definitely, and they actually believe that there may be some more documents that he still has that they didn't get everything from. But apparently, there's also a mole in his organization or in his group, maybe his family. For all we know, it was one of his family members that told him exactly where to find the items. Some of them were in his office closet, including a container, which I believe was his safe. They accidentally took a couple of his documents, including his passport, expired and non. And he's now claiming that there are some attorney documents that they got, and he wants to have a third party look at the documents to be able to evaluate whether or not they're there. But the problem is we're talking about top secret, not even just top secret, but top secret documents that are that even the court aren't supposed to look at in some cases. There have been precedents, and it's just absolutely bizarre. And it's no wonder that probably there are attorneys, not just because they've been burned, but just say, I don't want to get involved in this. I don't want to get caught up in it. It's just, this is just too crazy. This isn't even trying to steal an election. This is way, I don't want to be associated with this.
Yeah, something I said to you before we started airing tonight was that sometimes the plane or the case is bad, and sometimes the pilot or the person you're representing is just going to find the mountain. And I feel like with Donald Trump, attorneys feel like this guy is going to find the mountain, sometimes because he's egotistical, sometimes because he's reckless, but also sometimes because he is strategic. He is campaigning off of this. This is definitely feeding his narrative that he's being persecuted by the deep state. I wouldn't put it by the Trump administration to hold on to a lot of these documents way longer than they should have, just so they could have a little harmless raid by the FBI, so that they could, I'm like speculating, obviously, but I think it's really important to understand that when you have a president that flaunts the law as a form of business as usual, as you say, there is deep legal suspicion in multiple states that he's involved with like organized crime, with Russian oligarchs, all sorts of folks. And I think that there's plenty of reason for us to want to go in there. There's plenty of reason for us to want to know. It is hard to declassify and to really talk about this openly. It's going to take a long time for this to be transparent. But I think what is really shocking is that in many cases, we're talking about Trump-appointed judges and justices and people like that are looking at this information and saying, we're going to do this. And you have the entire Republican Party turning their back on that. Even the ones that are soft pedaling it are saying, like, we need to see what's in those documents, which I think we do. But that doesn't speak to those three prongs that I'm telling you about.
Yeah.
The prongs being that it's classified. We've tried to get it back, and they are refusing to get it back. They will not. This is substantial. And I think that's, to me, the big takeaway is that the conservatives will throw literally the entire FBI. We've known this, but we're seeing it again right under the bus.
I believe that the government's proposal for the affidavit is due tomorrow or Friday. Yeah. I'm not sure which, because they're supposed to have what they want to have redacted, and they're saying we pretty much want everything redacted. I mean, the affidavit is different from the warrant. That's what the warrant is based on, and it has everything in it, including what they're asking for, the documents that they're asking for, why they're important, and also the basis. I mean, I think probably Trump wants the affidavit because it'll give him clues as to who's in his organization or in his circle that's tipping him off, right? And that in other situations, or maybe even this one, that could put somebody's life in danger if they just release these affidavits. So there's all kinds of reasons not to do that. It's actually very rare that you would do that. And so, so the judge is like saying, well, I want arguments why I shouldn't do that, and but propose your redactions. And the judge himself, after looking at some of what the prosecution had said, it's not even a prosecution yet, it had said, said, I don't know if there's going to be anything meaningful left once everything's been redacted. He said that. Of course, the MAGA world's attacking him too. Apparently, there's some connection between him and Epstein, through a firm that he worked for, this kind of thing. So the deep state stuff is going on, and the rest. But you've got the counter memes. There's one of what's the name of the detective with the long white trench coat, Columbo, saying, "Oh, one more thing, sir. I mean, if the FBI planted those documents, exactly how did you declassify them?" I mean, it's just, it's like all of the contradictory claims that Trump has made, and yet that they're willing to accept. I notice that there aren't very many elected Republicans commenting on it, other than, well, let's see the affidavit. The outrage, the foul outrage is gone at this point. As I mentioned last week, Mitch McConnell himself has stayed very quiet. He was smart enough. McCarthy, like an idiot, just went out, "Oh, we're going to be investigating this when blah, blah, blah." But McConnell stayed real quiet, and we'll be talking about him in the second session more. But a lot of other people are like, yeah, we don't want to go here, because the Democrats are already all over this. What happened to the thin blue line? All of a sudden you sound like Antifa. Do you fund the FBI? Really? You're going to even use that slogan?
It's also just an interesting pivot. We've got the January 6th hearings going on, and throughout the duration of all of that, we're hearing that we want to talk about the economy and about inflation and all of those things. And now all of a sudden, when the FBI serves a duly served warrant to the house of someone that just so happens to be a former president of their party, now all of a sudden we're going to talk about investigations and making sure people are accountable. That, again, just seems very deeply selective for those folks. And I just kind of want to repeat what I said. I think that this is unprecedented for our country, but very predictable for Donald Trump. And I think, like a lot of moderate conservatives in this country, it's just really alarming to me that so many high-ranking people in the Republican Party would throw Trump-appointed justices and the FBI itself under the bus. I'm not here to rally for the FBI. I just think it's very alarming when the party that gives them what legitimacy they do have is just refusing to do that.
No, it puts me in a tough spot, because of course, I was born when Hoover was still in charge of the FBI, and I come from a family of people who were investigated by the FBI. My grandfather was a communist, and the FBI showed up at the door and took away the family's passports and everything. I mean, it's and the FBI has in the past, and probably still in the present, has been used for political implementation to shut down movements and the rest. I just don't believe that they're being used to shut down Trump. Maybe if they see him as some kind of threat to their interests, but I doubt it. I think he's really at this point not really taken seriously, even if he gets elected president, because he didn't really do much. It wasn't like he reformed anything once he was in there in terms of FBI or anything like that. He didn't go after any of the laws against wiretapping. Even with all the screening, he didn't change anything like that. Didn't even propose anything. So it's not like he's a threat to him in any way. He's so. So I'm not like saying the FBI are all heroes or anything like that. I'm just saying, but when we are taking on the FBI, we don't call them up and give them death threats, and we know if we do, we're going to be nailed to the wall. It's just where are all the arrests of these people who are making the death threats? There should be mass arrests. If there are mass calls of threats to the FBI, there should be mass arrests, because you can bet if there are mass calls from left-wingers that there'd be a bunch of them arraigned right now, having to plea, whatever.
The comparison that's really interesting to me and a lot of people, obviously it's a bit redundant at this point, is the response to the FBI meddling with the 2016 election and this right now. The response to like Hillary Clinton and all of the things that she may or may not have kept on her
Yeah.
personal servers and things. People are drawing just erroneous conclusions between these two events. There's a huge difference between
Oh
documents
yeah.
on servers and 700 documents in
Right.
boxes and things. But I think that when the FBI came forward and did their work, then you just didn't, again, you didn't hear this kind of response. If it was in fact about like preserving the political legitimacy and making sure we're not having a partisan witch hunt, so to speak,
Yeah.
I think we should have heard some of that at that point in time, and we really did not. And now we just have a much more brazen example. And rather than defending the institution now, they just want to make sure that every I is dotted, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, the difference too is Hillary Clinton, whatever she had, was also on the government servers. It's just
Right.
that she had something that was unsafe because it was on that. So when she destroyed it, it meant only the government had it. What Trump has, only he had because he has the originals.
Yes.
And I doubt she carried any nuclear secrets around on her phone. Why? So just, I mean, so no,
If that
it's
were
not
part of the
same.
story, we would have heard of it. We
We would
absolutely
have.
would have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, there's no comparison at all, and to it. They keep wanting to draw, but that's what they keep saying. Why isn't Hunter Biden in jail? And it's just like, where's that going? And I mean, it's as if there's any equivalent. I mean, it's just deflect, and this is politically motivated, and and that's what they're going to keep saying. But I think at first, when there were some independents who their impression of the FBI was tarnished, I think that's set by the side. Once the word Espionage Act violation came out, I think everybody was like, whoa, what's going on here? And now that they know that these were actually highly classified materials, all of a sudden it's gotten real, and all of a sudden attorneys don't want any part of it. They don't want. They're not going there for the headlines.
Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. The department did not make any public statements on the day of the search. The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing.
Okay, more Trump in this section. We are talking about the Civil War in the Republican Party. Now, we know that Liz Cheney lost her primary. That means 8 of the 10 of the House members who voted for impeachment are out of the House. And of course, one of them was Kinzinger. He got gerrymandered out by the Democrats. But the rest of them either retired because they figured they weren't going to win their primary, or they lost their primaries. 2 of them survived in Washington State, and that's about it. But so you've got that element out. Now, most of the senators are still in. Murkowski is facing a tough challenge in Alaska. She may yet survive it. A lot going on up there to discuss. Collins will probably survive. We'll see. Others, I mean, she's got a long ways anyways. Trump will probably be history by the time she even runs again. But a lot of the others are still surviving. But the battle kind of switched because McConnell is probably once again privately very angry because last time around he had a very good chance of becoming the Senate Majority Leader. And then Trump made a phone call that ended up becoming a very famous phone call to Georgia. And it probably cost them, the Republicans, both of those races in Georgia and the Senate. And once again, this time around, he's gotten his fingers into a bunch of elections, pretty much selecting or heavily influencing the primaries, and he's got the candidates that have prevailed, the ones that he endorsed, celebrities, the guys he likes, are not very effective candidates. The Warner in Georgia, the Oz in Pennsylvania, who's coming from New Jersey, Vance in Ohio, bad candidates, and although Ron Johnson isn't his candidate, you can kind of blame it on him. Pardon me, Walker in Georgia, right? And you can kind of blame it on him, that Ron Johnson, because he went all in on the big lie. Arizona, a bunch of candidates, Senate and otherwise, that are just they have problem. Also, the governor and candidate in Pennsylvania, but they're going to lose a bunch of races probably because of it. But McConnell is looking at, probably going to be denied the Senate again, largely because of what he called quality of candidates. And he said we have a better chance of winning the House, but he says we have a good chance of losing the Senate again. Trump responded, said he's a broken old, politician, well past his prime, attacked his wife, who, by the way, Trump had appointed, as a crazy woman, and McConnell was asked if he was going to respond to that and said no. Now McConnell again knows how to play it cool, but there's clearly a civil war still happening. McConnell will probably play it cool through the election because he does not want to alienate the Trump base. And this is the thing, that the tightrope that the Republicans walking. They need the MAGA people to vote. They need as many of them to come out as possible to salvage what they can of this election, especially they hope that they can win the House, and they still are favored to win the House, assuming that the Roe effect that we'll talk about isn't what it is. But they're terrified of, because the special elections since Dobbs' decision have not shown well for them. They've won where they had to, but they were closer than they should have been. And they lost one last night in New York, the 19th district, that Ryan won. They probably should have won in a red wave year. And we've discussed all the reasons why this should be a red wave year. We've got a bunch of reasons, but it's not looking like it's manifesting, because all of the special elections since June have gone the Democrats' way. Anyway, so the Republicans are going in kind of scared. They're hoping they're going to take the House, but even that's not a guarantee. What do you think, Aaron?
I think that Mitch McConnell is a really important person to watch in the United States. He's definitely one of the shrewdest politicians, possibly in American history. He has changed the complexion of the Supreme Court pretty much all by himself, obviously with a real solid party line. But the way that he's been able to understand Republican power, to really consolidate Republican power, and then to ride the waves that come and go where he loses that power or loses control of that power, are all truly masterful. And I think that if people want to understand why our politics are what they are, he's an important person to watch. In the last segment, you said he was very quiet about the FBI search on Mar-a-Lago. And to me, that was deeply indicative. If he were to have come out and said that he thought it was a big botched job, then I myself probably would have been like, oh, they screwed something up there. Because Mitch McConnell knows how to play cards. And I think that he's a very sober card player. He knows how to bluff, but when he bets, it's because he's got a hand, and he knows how to play that hand. And I think that what he's realizing,
he knows a losing hand when he sees it and stays away.
Absolutely. The lurches from left to right in this country are obviously frequently very nauseating. I myself was almost certain we were going to see an almost unilaterally red federal government, an executive, a Senate, a House, a judiciary. We were facing that just a few short months ago. Obviously, Roe v. Wade is an existential threat to every human in this country that understands how liberty works. 3/4 of Americans, I saw a recent poll, have said that this is a major violation of the rights of women and childbearing people. And, the effect of that is something we can talk about, but it is manifesting numerically. Like, we're starting to see it. Choice is absolutely on the ballot. Democrats are running with that as a slogan. It is creating fear for Republicans because it brings a lot of people out that wouldn't vote, and it keeps people home on their ticket that otherwise might. I think that when you see the Stop the Steal crowd coming, when you see Trump starting to take shots at people like Mitch McConnell, again, very predictable as far as I'm concerned for Donald Trump, but the question really is ultimately, what does the GOP establishment do? And so far, folks like Fox News and stuff like that, they're all trying to move past Trump as fast as they can. Everyone's saying DeSantis as much as they can. I continue to feel bad for Liz Cheney. I think her concession speech was outstanding. I think it really justifies the title of this segment being a GOP civil war because she invokes Abraham Lincoln very explicitly and seems to say very vocally that she's going to run for president, if only to stop Donald Trump.
Right.
Like, would Liz Cheney fight to beat DeSantis? I'm not convinced. I think that she would probably encourage that man in any way possible to beat any Democrat. But she did say in no uncertain terms that she will do everything in her power to keep Donald Trump from office. And as long as there's a core of old school Republicans like that and Fox News continues to cover their back, there's a wedge. There's a real divide. Trump can continue to play kingmaker in a lot of ways, win him and lose him, pick him kind of thing. But there will be a continued wedge because those folks aren't going away, and they know how to play politics.
Yeah. Now the thing about McConnell is that he is shrewd, but also a little short-sighted because in a way he is responsible for Trump when he whipped up this fury in 2010, the Tea Party and all of this craziness. He made this politics possible, and the complete, draconian, we're going to make Obama a one-termer and just the complete one-sided, power politics of it all. And he also should have been pushing for more Roberts type conservative justices rather than Amy Coney Barrett type justices, because he wouldn't have had this extreme Dobbs kind of decision. It would have just been kind of more chipping at the sides which wouldn't have gotten so many young women registering to vote that's making the difference in this. And we don't know what the real effect is going to be. We don't know the extent of it yet. I mean, they're still registering, and women are still 60 to 70% of the registering voters right now. And young women who never thought they'd even vote probably are voting. And that's got to terrify somebody like McConnell who understands what that means. And so he's probably wishing that maybe he's probably upset at Kavanaugh. Like, why did Kavanaugh go along with that? He probably thought Kavanaugh was more of a Roberts kind of group, but maybe Kavanaugh is just like in it for the revenge. Who knows? I don't know. But more Roberts type people, more smart people in there rather than kind of the extremists like Barrett and the others. So I think he's good at power playing, but he is a little bit myopic in terms of maybe he overdid it a little.
It's a difficult thing to do. I think politics in this country are very, very difficult to control just because of the kinds of coalitions that you see. And when it comes to the right, to say that Mitch McConnell is responsible, I think is very fair. When you look at his rhetoric during the Obama administration, for certain, but also the guy has never been a stranger to the Confederate flag. Like, there's just all sorts of images out there. There's all sorts of appearances there. And that is absolutely an elemental part of Trumpism that he and others would like to call the fringe of their party, but that makes up a pretty solid portion of the base and a huge part of the people that want to stop the so-called deep state. I feel like are folks that just want to win the old Civil War there. But I think that at the end of the day, for me, when I look at folks like Mitch McConnell, I see someone that knows that you can wait out most problems in American politics. And I do see him trying to wait out Trumpism. And he's been very quiet. He's been very sidelined. People attack him. He says nothing at all. Someone called him the world's only spineless turtle. And I'm like, this is exactly right.
Right.
He's very good at playing dead, but he's also very good at going for the throat. And so I do think that this election cycle will be interesting to see if there's more offense in that capacity from the Republicans. Fox News not covering Donald Trump in Trump land is a huge affront, but everyone else, it's like, well, they're just making editorial choices. But if Fox News were to start going on the offensive against Trump, that would be a very different story. And I don't know that we're seeing that.
No, we're not seeing that. The interesting thing is I think what Lynn Cheney wants is to run is to get onto the debate stage, and I know that the RNC is going to do everything to try to keep Lynn Cheney off of the stage with Donald Trump. Everything.
Liz Cheney, yeah.
Well,
she's a masterful debater. Like, I'm a debate educator for a long time. I disagree with 99.9% of her politics, but I will give credit where it's due. She can hold the line in a debate, and she will tear him to pieces.
Should be just like Hillary Clinton did in the first debate. I mean,
right.
It's the same kind of sharp intelligence that would do it, and she's at her peak. She would do it, and she would know exactly where to hit him, and that would be her mission. Not to win, not to promote herself, but to take him down. I mean, that would be the sole mission of her being up on that stage. They would not want her, and it would be very interesting to see how they handle that.
Yeah, she would have the entire Cheney apparatus behind her, and she is a legacy of one of the most prominent political parties of the prior, conservative era. And so I do think she would know how to hit him. She'd be coming at him from his own corner. She can outflank him on the right because he's not a very good Republican. Like, he's always tried to be, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, pretty much his whole life. He's pretty spineless. He's easy to rile up. You can make him mad really quick, and he will make mistakes. And I think that very much like Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney is used to dealing with those kind of men and knows how to handle it in the big stage. Yeah.
No, we saw how Biden did it. He's called him a clown and said, "Will you shut up, man?" And that's that was it. That's all you remember from that debate. Will you shut up, man? And I'm tired of this clown. That's what you remember, and because you couldn't hear anything else. And so
I remember wishing Kamala Harris was running for president because I think she would have done an outstanding job debating Trump as well.
True.
Sorry.
But at any rate, the other key question is DeSantis. It looks like he's backing off if Trump decides he's going to be the candidate. He attacked the FBI, big mistake on his part, because now I think the Democrats down there feel like they've got something. All of a sudden, they're energized. Christ is getting ready to go on it. Val Demings all of a sudden is close to Rubio in the polls, even was ahead in one of the polls. And the Democrats, in a state where all of a sudden the Republicans actually have more registered voters than the Democrats, and the Democrats haven't done well in that state in ages. It's all gerrymandered, draconian way in the Republicans' favor, and yet they feel energized down there, partly because they're energized everywhere. But Rubio is saying, well, they've got the Roe people, but we've got the Mar-a-Lago, exciting our base. I'm not seeing any evidence of that. Certainly didn't manifest in New York's special election, in either special election. We'll be talking about that in the next segment, but it. I'm just not, we'll see. But DeSantis may have he should have held back like McConnell did. I don't think he's got the same instincts. We'll see. He may have made a mistake there because Christ is going to go after him, especially if this Mar-a-Lago thing really plays out. He's going to go after him tooth and nail for that and other stuff too.
DeSantis is definitely, an aggressive politician. I think a lot of people are saying that he's taking over the mantle as the aggressor in chief from Trump as soon as he's willing to let go of it. So I think that for DeSantis to come out against the FBI prematurely and to make that kind of mistake, it's kind of indicative of where he's at. He's a bite first and think later kind of politician, but he's not Donald Trump. I mean, he's an Ivy League educated kind of guy that knows how to read statistics and knows how to read voter maps and knows how to hit the issue to win that voter map. And the one thing that DeSantis has going for him that I think a lot of Republicans really like, and that a lot of people that want to see him as the heir apparent to Donald Trump really speak to, is just that aggressive nature. He's not really willing to see like a lot of gray. There was a really wonderful interview with on the media where they were trying to get a hold of DeSantis, and he's just impossible to get a hold of. And they finally ultimately got a hold of someone that worked with him, and they were like, "What kind of guy is he?" And they said, "Well, he likes to look at the gray areas when he's deciding an issue, but when he's made up his mind, that is where he is going to be. And that is whether it's right or wrong, that's where he's going to be. So he needs to pick a side, and when he picks that side, he's going to be aggressive. It'll cost him a time or two, but he's way smarter than a lot of other Republicans in a lot of ways. He's being real coy right now. I'm very interested to see if he's going to be a Veep or if he's actually going to try to take it from Trump right away.
Okay, well, we'll see, but he's got to survive being governor first. If he does, if he's not governor, he's not going to be running for president.
Hard to win as president if you've lost as a governor, right? Yeah.
Okay, there were two major primary states yesterday, Florida and New York, and in what is probably the last litmus test prior to November's election, there were two special elections in New York. One, the most important one, was between candidates Ryan and Molinaro in New York's 19th House district. The incumbent there had gone on to been appointed to a higher office, so they're running. It's actually just for 4 months, before it gets replaced. But it was very much everybody was very much interested. It was it's rated by 538 as favoring Republicans by 5 points. This was supposed to be a red wave year. And yet, Ryan won by 2 points. Not a good sign for the red wave. And that is like the fourth special election in a row. There's another special election, which was a Republican. The Republican was expected to win, but he only won by about half of what he was expected to win. And not only that, the Democrats both outperformed the polls in both of them. And Democrats have been outperforming the polls everywhere in contested races in the special elections, and also the no vote against the abortion referendum in Kansas outperformed polls by something like 16 or 17%. It was supposed to be close, and it wasn't close. So you've got polls that are being skewed kind of the same way that you had the Trump effect in 2016 and 2020 that was confounding pollsters because they thought they were close. In Ohio, Biden was supposed to lose by 1 point. He lost by 8 points. Everything was being skewed that way because for whatever reason, the likely voter models just can't predict Trump, who's going to vote for Trump. And the likely voter models still have not figured out what the Roe effect is or what the extent is, because young women and women in particular are coming in, and a lot of them do not fit the likely voter profiles, and some of them are voting for the first time ever. I believe in Kansas, when that came up from the Dobbs decision on, actually when the Dobbs decision was leaked, it went up to 60% of the people registering were women. And then when the Dobbs decision happened, it went up to 70% were women. And that doesn't even tell the whole story, because there are probably a lot of men who are motivated by that as well, and to the Roe effect. So we don't know what the Roe effect is, but right now it does not look like there's going to be a red wave Now things can change. The economy's been going good. I think we reached our 70th day in a row of gas prices going down. Some of it probably because of Biden releasing the reserves, but also decline in demand. We're hitting the end of summer. A lot of different things going on there, but things are going pretty well. About the only thing that Biden really has to worry about right now is food prices are still really high, and if those don't drop soon, there might be some problems. But Biden's approval ratings are going up. Rasmussen and a Republican polling outfit does the only tracking poll left on this type of thing, had him at 47% high. I mean, Trump never got that high on their poll, right? So, I mean, it was 37% about a month and a half ago. So Biden is going back up. Things have been going well for him. We've been talking about his long winning streak. That doesn't mean things will keep going well. Maybe something will happen and gas prices will start going back up again before the election. Maybe inflation will take a hit. Maybe something will happen and a recession will hit, or some big thing will happen before now and the election. But as things are happening, it's not looking like your typical first off year. Everybody says, well, when you win the presidency, you lose a bunch of seats in the first year. Well, it didn't always happen that way. In the New Deal, 1934, Roosevelt's party picked up a bunch of seats. There are exceptions every time. Bush picked up seats in 2002 because of 9/11. There's always something that sometimes, not always, but there's often things that confound this. So looking at the results, and we'll talk a little bit more about some other results, but the special election, I think, is the big indication. Is there going to be a red wave?
We're seeing more Democrats running specifically on the right to choice. I think that was something that we saw in that in the New York race, the 19th race in particular. Choice is on the ballot was part of their slogan to get people to come out. You're right that typically when a president is elected, they lose those seats unless something significant happens. And the repeal of Roe is very significant. And I think that conservatives know that. And when you look at the liabilities that the two parties are carrying between now and November, a lot can change. But if I'm the Democrats and I'm looking at the economy saying that's my primary liability, and I'm the Republicans and I'm looking at GOP gubernatorial candidates in Michigan saying like having the baby of someone who assaulted you is a kind of healing, this is just a very wide disparity in the kind of potential tragedy that you are facing that can turn very moderate voters against your party in droves. If these kinds of platforms continue to elevate, and I think they will, the whole point of repealing Roe v. Wade was to put the power into the hands of the states where conservatism has been consolidating power in order through like the American Legislative Exchange Commission and groups like that to pass rafts of legislation to appeal to very specific portions of their base. And Roe v. Wade repeal was a big part of that. The right to life for fetuses is a big part of that. Every time we see more and more draconian interpretations of what it means in the post-Roe world, you see a huge liability for conservatives. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is a little sleepy. Republicans are shocked that 80 million people voted for Joe Biden. I am also shocked I voted for Joe Biden, but they nominated Donald Trump, so I didn't have a whole lot of choice there.
Exactly.
He's not the best candidate on earth, but he ain't Donald Trump, and that's big enough for a lot of people. The economy is really his only liability. That's it. And I think that enough people understand, one, COVID had a huge weight on that we are still dealing with. There's just a whole bunch going on there.
We got pent up demand and we got a war.
Right. There's so many wars. There's so many things that go in. And if you want to try to convince Americans that the economy is more important than the right to choice, you can do that. But I do not see that coming out in the polling. We are a liberty loving country and we like the dollar a lot, but liberty is more important to us than that dollar.
If people are really suffering, it's one thing. But if they're moderately suffering, everybody knows that a recession is going to go away or inflation is going to be gone in a year or two. But the right to choice, if you lose it, you're not going to get it back in a year or two. You're going to have to fight to get it way back. I am a little annoyed with the Democrats in California. It looks like we're going to have a Proposition 1 or something like that to guarantee the right to choose in the Constitution. We've already got it. It's called the right to privacy. This is going to explicitly say abortion, but this is manipulation. It's to get people to turn out on the ballot, and it'll probably work. But I really think it's, we've already had had the courts determine that privacy means abortion rights, among other things, including everything else that's going to be on. And, I wish they'd throw some other stuff in there, like, okay, funding for people who are coming from out of state or something. Then I'd be enthusiastically vote for it. And of course I'm going to vote for it. But, but it's really annoying that they put this in there to boost turnout, to help them, get stuff out there. I get it. I get why they're doing it, but I don't know. It's a blatant manipulation, and I find it annoying. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Well, all I would say is that politics very much is blatant manipulation, and I think that this is an issue that is absolutely worthy of taking the offensive on, even when we are safe, where we feel safe. I think we need to double down. I think we need to be explicit. I think the state of California is a trendsetter in a lot of ways. And we're not as secure as we want to think. Things can pivot quickly. Ronald Reagan and Arnold Schwarzenegger were governors of this state, and they're not Gavin Newsom. So
I get it. Although Schwarzenegger was pro-choice, but
he was, and Reagan was much more moderate than anything we're seeing out of the Trumpists, even though he was indeed Ronald Reagan.
That's true.
But
I would feel better if it added something. Not just redundant with what we already have, but something, some kind of funding, put something into it, something about, funding to help the Underground Railroad of bringing, or above ground railroad, even of bringing people from other states who need, where it's going to be banned, something like that, something that says we're going to ignore if they try to say that, try to extradite people from other states for, giving it that we're going to do, give us something new to do, not just redundant with what we already have. I find that a little cynical, but I'm sorry, but that's
you can definitely do more. I agree with you there. There's so much more that they should be doing in those capacities. Absolutely.
Well, it's just, if we're going to put a ballot proposition on, don't make it just purely symbolic. People are going to think, oh God, we don't have that. Gee, I bet we better vote for it. I mean, come on, But anyway, it's that I was a little disappointed there, but that's what's happening. Real quickly, the only other one of the big significant things is Nadler defeated Maloney. These are two people who've been in Congress for like 30 years. Nadler is, of course, a big name. You saw him involved with one of the impeachment hearings. They ended up being thrown into the same district because when the redistricting happened and the Democrats tried to gerrymander, the Democratic majority Supreme Court there said, no, Republicans can do that in other states, but we're going to be fair here. And they redistricted it, and it put them both in the same district. One of them had to lose, and it was Maloney, Carolyn Maloney. So she will be gone out of Congress, at least for now. Nadler wins. And I believe this is the strangest thing, but I believe this may be the first time in God knows how long, that there are no Jewish representatives from New York in the House. And so that's going to be, anyway, a very interesting development there. Down in Florida, Charlie Crist, as I mentioned, is going to be going up against the DeSantis. He's already, coming out swinging, calling DeSantis a wannabe dictator, and it's going to be attacking him hard. It's going to be hard to take DeSantis out, but like I said, DeSantis has had a couple of missteps. I do think that attacking the FBI right away was a misstep. It's going to be used against him, because I think this case is probably going to go badly against Trump before the election. Trump's going to probably try to delay everything, but he doesn't have the legal team right now. They're writing stuff that is like filled with misspellings and errors in law. I think I mentioned his legal team. One of them is like a special counsel to a parking garage. Somebody else is like a personal insurance defense attorney. Nobody specializes in federal criminal law, right? And espionage law. I mean, it's just that because nobody wants to do it. So they've got a problem. The Republicans have got a problem. They're married to this stuff. But anyway, good news for the Democrats, at least so far, but it is a long ways. We're 2.5 months. Wait a minute. Am I got the math right? September, October. 2.5 months. away from the election. So yeah, we're under 90 days, right? Yeah, it's 2.5 months away from the election. That's not that long off. I mean, the Democrats are looking pretty good. The question is how extensive is the Roe effect, and what is that going to mean? I've got a little bit of a prediction. I'm going to start to make election predictions from here on in, and I've got a little bit of one at the end of the show today, but. Not much else. Pretty much everything else was predictable. I think the establishment Democrats pretty much won against progressive challenges, unfortunately for progressives in New York, and pretty much foregone conclusion in Florida. There was a bit of a spirited challenge to Crist, but he won pretty much because I think the Democrats just want the name and the power to have the best chance at defeating that. Val Demings is a great candidate, but I think she's figuring she's not going to win this time around, but build herself up as a candidate for a future time, because her opponent is probably not actually the best candidate out there, and will at some point maybe be vulnerable, but he's not now. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Democrats decide to push left at any point. I'm really skeptical. I think they're going to turn to their establishment names to try to beat Trump and Trumpism. When I look at Florida, I really want Crist to put up a fight. I really do. I think that it makes sense that he's got like teachers unions and things on his side, because DeSantis is like attacking libraries, attacking educators, passing laws, talking about how you can and can't talk in the school. Really like drastic overreach into just everyday public life. When you look at his stance against like Walt Disney and things, here's another issue where, he's making enemies that he probably doesn't need to make, and that certainly is not going to help him, So I do think he's vulnerable, but just looking at the numbers, I think he's going to win. I really want to be wrong about it, but until I see major shifts, I just think DeSantis is going to come out of Florida strong, and that's going to be probably the future of the party. I'm not positive about that, but he's aggressive, and I think that is something that speaks to Trumpists, but that is definitely something that riles up Democrats that are fearful in that state right now.
Yeah, well, the thing with Disney is that could actually cause some problems, because the price of bonds could go down with that. That was a big mistake on that. Yeah. But Democrats have gone to the left in a couple places. Barnes in Wisconsin, he's not maybe not quite as far as Bernie, but out there he's made some pretty good stuff, and he's just he's not compromising on it. He's being his populist self, figuring he can't change who he is to win it. And Fetterman, he's, except on a couple of issues, he's basically Bernie, but that type of populism and those politics and universal health care actually works there. That's, if you stick to those economic issues, Bernie's politics works in Pennsylvania. So anyway, we'll be talking about that though, but we need to move on. Okay, that brings us to our predictions phase. Aaron, what do you have for us?
Well, the prediction that I made a long time ago that I still want to be true is that Liz Cheney is going to be the first woman president of the United States. But she's going to run. She's going to get absolutely crushed like she did in Wyoming. The Republicans are not going to come out for her. It would be amazing. It would be a coup. It's not going to happen. I've also said I think Newsom and Abrams are going to be the ticket for the Democrats. So I think I'm just going to say that I do think DeSantis will be the nominee. I think he'll be the presidential nominee. It's a boring one, but I'm going to go with that one.
You don't think Trump will run, huh?
I think Trump is going to run, and I think DeSantis is going to beat him.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Maybe he'll run from jail, just like Eugene Debs. All right. But I think Gretchen Whitmer will be the first president, but we will talk about that another time. My prediction is going to be very quick. I'm going to start with, I believe that with everything that's happening in California, with what I talked about today, with this Proposition 1, and with the way we now handle elections, with all of the ballots being sent out, and the way that the Democrats can organize around that. I believe that the Democrats are going to pick up 3 House positions in California. So that will definitely help to offset losses nationally. But I believe that the Democrats, my prediction is that Democrats will pick up three House seats in California, all of them in the southern portion. And we'll see if that comes true in about 2.5 months. But I'm going to be making predictions from here on out unless something else really comes up. But in the meantime, thank you very much, Aaron, for standing in at the last minute. That was really good.
No problem.
Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.